It is a cold Friday here at News Talk 1340, KROC-AM. Andy is off today. I'm James Raby, along with Mayor Ardell Brede. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on Rochester today. It's did you walk over from the
I
work?
didn't. I had some other errands I'm going to do, so I thought I could park in your lot here, but that wasn't a wide enough spot for maybe a bicycle could get in there, not my car.
Right.
So I'm across the street because you don't have any parking on this side of the street yet.
Speaking of bicycles, in case Abe is out there selling coffee, feel free to ride a bike over here and drop off some free coffee for us. That'd be fine. Not for the mayor, because that would be bribery or something.
Yes, we couldn't do that.
So we are looking at very few weeks that you are still going to be in office, sir.
That's about it. Yeah, 12/31, I think, is the last day. There was some question that do you stay as still the mayor until the new mayor gets sworn in? But then somebody said, well, no, I think your term ends at the end of the year. And in the interim, if there was something that needed mayoral action, it would be the council president that would have to step in and do it. So it's covered one way or the other.
Give Randy Staver a beeper.
Yep.
Tell him stand by, sir.
Could do that. Yep. Yeah. And he probably has his phone too. So yeah, you're ready to go. But as I've said over and over again, I've said it during the 16 years. It's been a joy. It's an honor to be able to represent this great city. Not only within the city, but within the state of Minnesota, within the United States, and really around the world. I've been able to do it. So it's been great.
When you talk about representing us around the world, were those trips you took specifically for the city?
Well, some of them. If I go through and say, well, Germany, I was there once for sure as mayor because that's one of our partner cities. China was because we were visiting our partner city. Saudi Arabia was not a part of Rochester, but as the U.S. Conference of Mayors, there were 10 mayors that got invited to go there with either a staff person or your spouse or a friend or whatever. That one was, and I first asked, I said, how did I get in on that mix? And a fellow from the U.S. Conference Mayor said to me, and where does the king get his medical care?
Oh, yes.
So your name was listed there, or the city of Rochester, maybe. And I don't think I would go there today, but back, whatever that is now, 6-7 years ago.
Well, we used to see that jet all the time, it felt like, at the airport, that gigantic, long, black, sexy, shiny jet.
Yeah, multiple ones come. But that particular trip was one that I kind of called it then. I said it was clearly public relations. They were trying to show how good people they were. Mm-hmm. And so we were, I think we had 3 or 4 other flights while we were in Saudi Arabia because we landed in Riyadh, the capital. We were there for a couple days, and then we went a little bit east to I don't even know what the name of the city, but we visited their schools, and 2 boys that was a full school from elementary school up through high school, and the 2 young men that were my escorts. One was already accepted at Harvard, the other one was already accepted at Yale, but all the way down like to elementary. And I remember going in a 2nd grade class, and one of the kids there had a Twins T-shirt on.
Nice.
And the wall had looked the same as if you went into here, where you had the letters, the capital A and the small A all along. Everything is in English was there. But there was a wall down the middle of the school, and the boys were on one side, the girls on the other. So Judy was along that time, and she had a young lady that escorted her around. That her goal was to be a secretary, not like a stenographer, but she wanted to be like the Secretary of Labor or the Secretary of.
That's a good goal.
She had.
That's impressive.
That was her level, and I remember Judy told me later. She said she was a wonderful young lady, and boy, her goal was there. And then we went all the way out where a lot of the oil fields are, the sand dunes, and wandered around there, and also seeing the various Jeeps there with the anti-aircraft guns sitting on them.
Oh, my gosh, sure. Well, sure, considering the territory they're in.
That was part, and then flew all the way back across to Jeddah, kind of as they've said it, which is pretty westernized. I mean, it was all the same fast food stores, the same car dealerships, and all of that along there. Went to the Chamber of Commerce there, and where one of the guys said, we allow our We allow our women to fly our airplanes, but not to drive our cars.
Which I think is finally changing.
Finally changed.
Right.
And I know I talked to one of the teachers that she taught like 35 miles or more out of town, out of Jeddah, and they had to have a driver for her. Took her just there. And
amazing.
Every day. And then we went to the whatever that was. I should remember that, but it's like the old town of Jeddah, where, which looked like a movie set in a way. All those little shops that you see people with their various rugs and things that they're made.
Like a marketplace.
Marketplace, yes. And we were on that kind of whatever that main street of that, and they said you can go 2 blocks up, but don't cross that street. And, of course, one of the guys that was with our group, you got to test that out.
Right.
So he said he barely did step across, and there were 2 soldiers came out from both sides.
Wow.
Get back.
What was on the other side?
I do not know.
None of our business.
Exactly. But what a trip it was. And then the last day we were flying out at night, and we had a shopping mall that we went to. Said, okay, it's time to pick up some souvenirs and stuff like that. And in the big shopping, it'd be like going to what was Dayton's or Macy's here. And they said, but a guy, you cannot go in there alone. If you're with a woman, you can go in. So I went in with you. And the reason is they figured guys just going in there to look at women if that's what they were going to do. So that was not allowed. And then I went and did some things, and Judy was with the mayor's wife from Denton, Texas. I can't remember her first name, but they were doing some shopping. And as they were walking, they said there was a fellow following them all the time. And finally, the other lady was turned around and said, "Are you following us?" And the gentleman said, "Yes, I am. And we just want to make sure nothing happens to you."
Oh.
So they had taken care of that. Again, like I said, this whole thing was PR like. We're showing how good we are.
Right,
Nothing's going to happen. Worst thing would be if mayor or mayor's spouse, whatever, something happened. Anyway, it was a great trip to be on. And as I said then, if you can't be the king, it's not bad being guest of the king.
That is the second best, right? Because you don't want to be the brother of the king.
No. We were not able to see the king that time when you mentioned the brother. His brother was sick, ill in another area of the country, so he was there visiting, and so we didn't have the king. But we had some amazing parties that were put on for us in one of the cities. Actually, the fellow that we went and visited there, he had served a residency here as a physician, and has obviously done really well. And it was a big air-conditioned tent that we were in, and I remember the little kids that were in there, the kids of that family or families that were brought together, they all wanted our business cards or something. I don't know, they were collecting those, and huge with lamb and all this stuff, all in the food and fruits and vegetables, all of that. And I know we were inside there, and some of the wives of some of the gentlemen that they're physicians, whatever, they were not wearing the blanking
the head covering.
Head covering, and I said to one of them, they're beautiful women, and I said, "Why are you not wearing that?" And she just pointed through the window of the tent. Out there, yes. In here, no. So
all right.
I said, okay.
Right. You're just curious, not questioning it.
Yeah, right. Every day in Riyadh, we were there like 2 or 3 days, and we visited all the various departments of such and such that were in the city. It's the capital. And they looked like brand new black Mercedes that they had, and there'd be, like for me, and each one, Judy and I, and a driver. The driver with his white robe and all on, and air conditioned, cold water in there, and we'd drive to another place, and drive like crazy. And they'd go through, and the front car had speakers on it that they were rattling off something like, I think, like stay back, whatever, because this was a motorcade coming through. And wherever we would get, pull the car in, the driver would get out, open the back door, get out, and they'd shut the door, and the driver would stand outside that car for the whole hour or two that we would be in, and the car running. so it stayed cool.
Right, yeah, because it would heat up just like that. I've been in Phoenix in the summer in July, so I know what that's like.
Right.
Wow, that's incredible.
So, yeah, it was one of those memorable trips that you get to take. And China, of course, we went down the Yangtze River and through the, what is it they call it, the 7 gorges, not gorgeous, but gorgeous dams that are there that takes you all night to go through those.
Right.
And then there was another river that the Yangtze is just filthy, dirty. But then there's another one that was very pure looking, and there are people there fishing with the birds, that the birds go get the fish, bring it back.
Wow.
Cormorants, I think, or something like that. Pristine, but here we're on this little boat for a meal and something, and others, there were tourists on it and probably locals, and when they finished the meal, and a lot of it was deep fried, and they had this big cauldron of grease, they just dumped it in the water. And it was, I mean, you could look at the cows were walking in the water too, and eating the grass that's growing up from the bottom there. But it's been an honor, and a lot of things right now are kind of bittersweet. When I do something, it's probably this. It's the last time I'll probably be on the radio here as mayor, and other things that I've been able to do and visit schools and whatever, second graders. That one thing hasn't really changed in 16 years at second grade. You go to it and Q&A time. Do I have a limousine? Almost 100% of the time.
Yes, it's called my own car.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice car, but I don't have a driver, and I don't. And sometimes too, do I have a bodyguard? That's
See, I used to get asked if I was wearing pajamas by second graders. No, these are pants. They look like pajamas. So asking if you have a limousine, they respect you a great deal more than me. Well, we have to take a break.
Good.
And you mentioned Judy in your last story about China. I would like to talk about this wonderful woman you had in your life for so long. Coming up on News Talk 1340 KROC-AM.
Yep.
And I think about an old playwright who once said to his friend whose wife had passed away, "You lucky SOB, you got that wonderful woman in your life for so many years."
57 years. Well, actually more, but we were actually married for 57 and a half years already. And what a wonderful lady. And as the story is, and it's true, that our first date was at the Chateau Theater. And the movie was Summer Place with Troy Donahue and Sandra Dee. And so the theme from A Summer Place, which was I'm going to blank at what that famous orchestra group that did that too. But anyway, that was our theme. And if we were in the car together and start playing, we'd nudge each other. So that's it. And so it's one of the reasons why I've been passionate about getting that Chateau Theater redone. And our last DMC meeting here, R.T. Rabeck was reflecting on some significant people in his life that passed away, and then said to me, he says, every time you walk through the door of the chateau and that gets done, Judy's going to be right with you. So yeah, it's probably true. But wonderful lady, wonderful first lady, as probably didn't maybe in some ways play that up maybe as much as we could have done in some ways, but highly respected. And I'm going to say a word that I mean it in the most positive way. She was very opinionated, and she was a assistant charge nurse in surgery at Methodist Hospital. And there's two quotes that we rarely talked about business at home, but one was, and I was impressed not just because it was Judy, but just because of the relationship that happens between a surgical nurse, scrub nurse, and their surgeon. One was the surgeon saying, "Give me the instrument I need, not the one that I ask for."
Yes. Yes.
Yes. The other one was when a resident in surgery, that oftentimes they're trying to prove themselves. And in surgery, oftentimes the surgeon himself comes in when the case is open and they're ready to do the surgery. And the resident in this case apparently thought he had a better way of opening the case and something or other. And Judy was trying to tell him, no, that's not the way doctor wants it. But no, this will be fine. Surgeon comes in the room and looks at the body in the case and looks at Judy like, points, what? And all she did was point at the resident. And the surgeon looks at the resident and said, "You do never question Mrs. Brede."
That's good.
End of the story.
That's well, you know things. You learn things,
Yep.
and often we know that those people like Judy are the ones that really know what's going on.
Exactly. So anyway, so she was very good, and then she had the I guess I'd say it's the honor that has a surgical instrument named after her.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
That was in one of the cases that the particular surgeon did that was into the esophagus, apparently he was concerned about how deep, you go too far, you cut on the other side of the esophagus.
Right.
And Judy at somewhere in there said perhaps a bandage scissor would work once you make that opening cut because you got the blunt end on the bottom.
Sure.
But the handle isn't long enough to get down there. And so they contacted the, I guess, V. Miller Surgical Instrument Company, and they made some with a longer handle. And so when the story he wrote it was a unique procedure that got written up in the medical journals and had pictures of it and so on, and had a picture of the scissor on there. And in the text it said, I use an instrument called the Judy scissors.
That is great.
And so when he had already retired. When she retired, I tried to get one, and nobody else did that procedure. Nobody had that instrument. But section of engineering at Mayo, as Judy would say too, they could do anything. So I had badges. I had the photo of that out of the journal, that article, and they measured that, and they measured what I wrote, and I said, we can just cut one, and we'll do that, braze it in there, and you can't even tell it. And so when she retired, I had a shadow box made with the medical journal article, a couple candid pictures of her with that particular surgeon, and the Judy scissors is in there.
That's amazing. As much as we all love you, her name is going to live on forever then.
It will. So when she was a patient resident out at Madonna Towers, a lot of those young women that are from all over the world too, many of them from Sudan and Somalia. First of all, Judy being an RN, and many of them, they're a CNA, or they want to become a nurse.
Right.
And they do that. But Judy, she was their hero. And then as a surgical nurse, that was like even higher. They were just like, wow. And then when I brought that box from home and that we have on the wall at our home, brought it into her room and hung it, why, then it was like almost they were in the, they bow down almost.
Presence of greatness. But they were. We have to take a break for news. Thank you for that remembrance. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
It is News Talk 1340, KROC-AM Rochester. It is News Talk 1340, KROC-AM Rochester. It's Rochester Today. I am James Raby, and Andy Brownell will be back on Tuesday. He has taken a long break, so the shenanigans will all be James Raby driven until then. We're with Mayor Ardell Brede. His last few weeks of mayoralness is going on now. And I know that your office is full of teddy bears.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what's the process?
And there is a process. There were over 100 in there, and I past tense were. They're not all there anymore. I took about, and the plan was for quite a while, is what would I do with them? And short story on that one, they are all except about 10 at Ronald McDonald House right now.
That's fantastic.
So that was, and I had asked them quite a while ago. I said, would you take them? And I said, well, then I'll, they've never been played with, so they're only dusty. And I said, I'll probably have to take them to a dry cleaner or something and have them fluff them up or something. But they said, no, just bring them, and they can do it because they have them. I don't know exactly how they use them, if it's just to, obviously everybody loves a teddy bear, and so whether they clean them or give them to the kids that when they leave, but so there's over 100 of them went up the street here to
that's really great.
McDonald House.
That's great.
And I took about 7 of them that were in various attire of gopher gear to home.
Why? I didn't know you liked the Gophers.
You didn't?
Did you, James?
Kim David joins us now on News Talk 1340 KROC. Welcome. Yeah, it's a complete. I remember doing the morning show once with Tracy McRae, and you came in to talk to us about the Gophers, and I had already known. I barely knew who you were, and I already knew that you were a Gopher fan.
Well, earlier this week there was a retirement event for Ardell and his longtime assistant Donna Bussell.
Yep.
And it was funny because she wanted to retire in June, and then Ardell says, "Come on, you got to hang around." around. I said, you know why he wanted her to hang around? To help get rid of those bears. It'll take 6 months to get them out of that office.
Spent all morning throwing more things into not a dumpster, but a big barrel to get rid of it, and trying to do all of that. And I've got another 2 weeks to do that, but a lot of it is just being thrown away. Some of it I'll take home, and it'll ultimately get thrown away probably again, is the way that works.
Well, the History Center should get some of that maybe,
we've
huh?
given some of that already out to them, things that, in fact, I had one this morning that I was just looking at a picture that was taken out at, you remember Glenn Miller here in town?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of important today that being, it's Pearl Harbor Day too, but there's one of them, a guy that used to own Hanny's, one of the original owners there, out west of town. They would have a breakfast once a year out there, and I got invited to several of those, and some of those would reminisce about the World War II and so on and so forth. And there's actually a CD of that too.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I've just clipped that, and I thought that can go out to the center, the History Center, and so we'll see. But yeah, a lot of stuff, photographs. I should have brought it in. You guys would recognize it, but it's in one of the rock stars from here that I had a picture with, and I thought, who is this dude? Long blonde hair.
Who is that?
It is News Talk 1340, KROC-AM Rochester. We were talking about your legacy, things you've seen change in your 16 years as mayor.
Well, you mentioned the DMC, and yes, having been through all the legislation to get that passed, and that beginning, for that was amazing. How many trips up to the Capitol and to, the legislature, and working on that, and of course, kind of what goes around now is Kim Norton. Was one of the real.
Yeah, she was in the legislature at the time. People may forget
really
that, but
helpful in that. Really helpful in getting that. So how was that going to be constructed and all that, and man, some meetings, and here's the final contract, and I know that kind of how that's going to work. And Steve Crenwell is up there. He said, I hope we can get that done. And he was about ready to just drive back home because it wasn't going right. And we go across the street to a coalition of greater Minnesota cities who have some of their attorneys were helping us on that. And finally, and I remember there was a group where it was both senators and representatives that, and I'm going to blank on the name, that person that chaired that. And Kim was not on that particular group, but she was in the room, and the person chairing said, well, why don't we ask Kim? She knows more about this than all of us put together, she said, and that was true. And so she'll be able to. And then, of course, the way it got written was the mayor and a council member and a county commissioner all would be on that committee, as long as they didn't work at Mayo, because Mayo was going to have a couple people themselves on there. And so here you are, here on that committee, and then Ed Ruska was first on there, and then of course Hickey now, and that'll be changing now again, but it was having been on the kind of seeing it built for that, and then now in operation. I got a nicest note from R.T. Rybeck just yesterday or day before, and he said, Ardell, I'll make sure we get this thing done the way we want it. It was really nice of him to, and I got him to be on because the governor was going to appoint two people, and we had some names, and I think Gary Newman and I have kind of thought, well, RT had been through a lot of the stadium and all that stuff as mayor up there. He knows about big projects, and it would be good on there. And I remember calling him a couple times, and I says, and one of them was like the day before. I says, RT, you got to get your name in if you want to. Yeah. To the governor.
They're not just going to call you up and say, hey,
come on along.
But I knew RT actually when I probably first met him truly was when I was campaigning yet, and hadn't won, and it was at the state fair, And I had a bunch of my kids there, and we all had our Brady Bunch T-shirts on. And RT came, and of course in Minneapolis they have a police escort too. But he came, and I said, I want to do what you did, beat the incumbent. He beat Sharon Belton. That was And so as it turned out, true. But another time then after that, we were at I think it was homecoming for the U up there, and Judy was a Hillary supporter, and RT was Obama. And they, in a good-natured way, they were right in front of the ROTC building up there. That's the kind of the castle at the U. And they got into it on that. And Judy would not back down.
Where are the cameras when you need them, huh? The recorders.
It was so funny. I just stood back and
let them go.
It was funny just how that went too. But it was. But the DMC was a biggie. You
got the Mayo Civic Center expansion. And of course, the thing that thankfully didn't happen was the whole thing with the train. Yeah.
Many meetings
I forgot about
Mayo,
that thing.
working with that, where we were,
wondering where it was going to go.
Keep that thing out and working on that. I actually went over to Brookings, I think, once to talk to their city council one night. Drove over with somebody from Mayo, rode with me, one of the administrators there, and we went over to talk to them and turn right around and come back home.
Did DM&E just end up going out of business? What I don't remember why it didn't happen.
The guy in charge, the guy who stirred everything up, he eventually they were eventually bought out by another railroad.
Right.
And the coal industry kind of went south. And but one thing as we're talking this morning, I said, of all the stuff that's happened in the 16 years, one that I'm sure had to be really, really, that had to make you feel good was the U of M coming down here.
Yes.
I mean, we all know you bleed purple or gold and purple, and your love for the U and Judy's too.
Yep.
And finally, after all these years, and look, 50 years, I think, the city's been trying to get a campus here,
right?
And it finally happened.
And it was. So every once in a while somebody would ask either Judy or I, well, when did you graduate or what year? And I said, we didn't. I says, but our money did. When did you go there?
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't, but our money did. We had two kids that graduated from there, and always have been a big band, the University of Minnesota Marching Band. In fact, when not the current president of the U before, but I'm blanking on his name right now.
Before Kaler?
Yeah.
We had Brunix?
Brunix.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When we did one of the events here, and I said, my chance to talk, I said, really, the marching band is really here in Rochester. They just happen to practice up there. His response was, I'm glad you think that way, Mayor. He said, because they're darned expensive to start another one.
Yeah. When you had them coming down here, was it once a year for a while?
Every other year for 30 years ago, so 15 times. This should have been their 16th, but they just didn't have the time because they were able to go to an out-of-town game this year with the whole group. And so actually last Friday night when they had their indoor concerts, I was honored that night but not able to get there. And so Leslie, our oldest daughter, she's an alum of the band. She was in it. So she was there, stood in for me. So the band cap or hat was was on Judy's casket was given that night, and all 325 members of the band signed it.
I saw that. Yeah,
in a circle that just goes around.
Yeah,
And so that's not just because of that, but others. And looking at some of the cards that are just starting to go through, is there's quite a few checks in there that will be going up to there, because that was something that Lemcool named. We were starting to do a few scholarships, and probably 7 or 8 years ago at one time he said, well, from here on that scholarship is named the Judy and Ardell Bredes Marching Band Scholarship.
Yeah.
So it's like we just gave again area. He said we'll give it to area students that go there, and so we've had Pinan and some Casson, and this year all 5 of them were from Rochester, so $1,000 each that they get that comes out of there. And so I was invited, and I'll go up Sunday night. They're having their end of the year banquet with the So there'll be some more things, but I'll find out which schools the 3 and 5 are. They all get the big oversized check that says, here it is with your name and so on.
They're awfully hard to cash.
Yeah, they are.
Awfully hard to cash.
Terrible hard to do that. But so yeah, people all along. I said what I remember is literally laying on the living room floor in our home in Austin, listening to the Gopher football games. No TV at that point. And my dad was that. And I remember one time we were up something in the cities. He didn't go up there very often, and it was after a football game. And I thought, oh, my God, look at the number of people and all this and that in the stadium. And I thought, man, it must be fun to be able to come someday up here to go to those and things like that. So it's there's a lot of things. And we were talking earlier about some of the trips to other countries that to go and represent the city. And I always said I never wanted to embarrass the city, and then secondarily, I don't want to embarrass myself either. But it's been a joy, and it's a very humbling experience to be able to do all of this, and not, I think, tick off too many people over the years.
Well, I think and you were always so good at the media. And I could swing over there almost any time and just literally walk into his office, right. James, and Ardell said, come on in, what do you want to talk about? And I'm pretty sure that Kim will be the same way. She's always been very open, to anybody, and it's a tradition that goes all the way back as far as I've been in this business.
She's vacationing, and I think she gets back probably next week, and then we've got, I think, a couple times scheduled now too, and others probably that aren't scheduled yet, but we'll start going through. And I'm emptying out stuff, and now this one probably got to stay. She can at least look at it and say, no, get rid of that. And I two things that I said I'm disappointed, or one that I didn't get done. I was hoping at some point we could start the council meeting with a prayer, and I've got all the documentation from Terry Atkins that separation of church and state. That you're solid. You don't have to worry about that. And I just thought it was another way of it would make sense, and we could show our diversity in the community by having pastors or clergy from all, and the first 3 I had scheduled was Pastor Wall from Bethel, one of the sisters who was head of the Sisters of Assisi, and Michelle Werner. So that were the first 3 I had set up, and I said, get 2 minutes or something and do it, and because they do it at the state capitol, do it at the Supreme Court and all of that. Why can't we?
It just struck me too how happy Judy would be knowing, when Kim Norton takes over, right? A woman in there as mayor for a change, huh?
It is time for us to wrap up. But again, thank you for all your service to our community, Ardell. This is News Talk 1340, KROC-AM, Rochester.